welcome to this event. Thank you so much for joining us on this rainy evening. I'm Alexandra Tracy. I am the chairman of the Royal Commonwealth Society in Hong Kong. Now, I know none of you have come here to see me. It's all about our special guest, Tayma Page Allies, but I'm particularly delighted to be hosting this event this evening. It's the first of a new series that we're launching, My Commonwealth Story, which is intimate conversations with our members and friends about how the Commonwealth has been a backdrop for their families, lives, careers, and interests. And Tayma is the first one to be telling her colourful story for us tonight, which is great. Now, many of you know Tayma well, of course. Many of us have spent much too much money in her lovely shop and know about her passion for gemstones and her expertise. But maybe you don't all know that Tayma is a true child of the Commonwealth, or even the Empire, if we count Hong Kong before 1997. She grew up in Malta, Trinidad, and Nigeria. And later on, she was one of those people who came to Hong Kong with a small suitcase and stayed forever. And those experiences and cultures have influenced her outlook on life, her sense of get up and go, and how she's built her successful business. In fact, she's a perfect case study of the soft power of the Commonwealth. So, over to Tayma. Let's start with Malta, where you were born. What do you remember about that?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you to everybody for coming and supporting the Royal Commonwealth Society. And what's more is paying money to listen to me when you normally listen to me for free. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know if does this sound a bit funny, the microphone? I don't know if it's better here or here. Is it fine?
It's fine.
So yes, I've got my Maltese cross on. So part of my bling this evening, I have my Maltese cross, which I can wear as I was born there, in the 50s. And my parents met and married when they were sort of 23, 24, and went to Malta, and we were really lucky because that was the place to be, apparently, in those days. And we lived in a beautiful apartment in the Villa Guadamanja. We had a garden apartment, and that's where Prince Philip, Princess Elizabeth, as she was, and Lord Mountbatten all lived there as well. We didn't live there at the same time as them. They left in 52. I got there in 57. So, but actually, my first language really was Maltese, because my nanny was Maltese. So. I think that even then I probably was always late because I still remember her saying to me, "Imshi, imshi," which is hurry up.
And so in those days, I think Malta, well, it had been bombed to pieces during the war, hadn't it? But I think by then it was quite a glamorous posting.
It was, because the Royal Navy was there. So there was a lot of parties, a lot of fun.
Do you remember at all how, was it very British, colonial, or was it actually quite Mediterranean?
I think Malta is a real hidden city, hidden city-state. I remember you walk along, it's very dusty, lots of bricks, and then you see a door. And if you were able to open that door, you would walk into an oasis. So it's very Arab in that way. There's a lot of concealed beauty and history and heritage in Malta because it's a mix of Italian, Sicilian, Arab. Yes, the Brits were there, but a lot of other people have been there. A lot of other nations and cultures have been in Malta for years, thousands of years.
Yeah. So next, the family moved to Trinidad, another island, but a very different one. So tell us about life in Trinidad. Was it all beautiful beaches and palm trees?
A lot of it was. What I really remember, and I always seemed to go to another country in October, my birthday, and I remember we went on BOAC, and I was allowed to put on the long white gloves, and give out all the sweeties to make your ears stop popping. And as we came off the plane into that sort of heat of Trinidad, my mother, who was always very glamorous and elegant on the plane, there was a calypso guy at the bottom of the steps, and he immediately made up a whole calypso about my mother being Princess Margaret, because that's who she looked like. So my introduction at 9 was a wonderful calypso, and then the first food I remember having in Trinidad was papaya, which we call pawpaw.
And amazingly, we have somebody here today who's a friend from those Trinidad
We do,
days.
so I'm just thrilled that Sarah's here, and I've known Sarah since she was 6, so she's a bit younger than me. And I was always the apparently glamorous teenager, that's what she says. And her mother and my mother were great friends. And was your mother, did she chair the British Women's? Yeah. So there was the British Women's Association, which seemed to have hundreds of British women there, and all nationalities. It was a bit like AWA. And yeah, Mummy used to run that year after year, and sometimes Sarah's mother. And yes, but many, many happy memories. And I'm wearing a school badge. So this is St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain. So I passed my 11 plus, and was very lucky, went to the top girls' school. Sorry, Sarah.
No.
And some of the brightest Trinidad women went to my school, and in fact, one lady, Bridget Anisette George, is Speaker of the House of Commons in Trinidad, and she got in touch with me a few years ago, which was great. And now I'm on a St. Joseph's sort of Facebook thing, and we just celebrated the 190th year anniversary, which for a girls' school in the Caribbean is really special. So yeah, it's a really, so I was lucky to go there.
Yeah. But these were turbulent times.
Yes, they were.
So tell us about what happened in 1970 in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, well, in 1970, the sort of politics of New York and Black Panther movement moved into the Caribbean. And in about 1970, we had a Black Power movement. And I had to literally escape from St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain, on the floor of a taxi to go home, and didn't go back to school for another 3-4 months. And we had helicopters overhead, we had a British frigate to help us escape. We had dusk till dawn curfews, and on top of the Black Power movement, the army mutinied against the government, led by this charismatic young captain who was called Rex LaSalle. And I always remembered his name because it was because of him that when I went back to school, they were then having all the court-martials, and my whole class would sort of run to the window and Black Power. And as the only blonde, blue-eyed in the school, it was a bit difficult. So in the end, I had to go to school in England.
So were those frightening times?
Not really. You're sort of, you're not particularly frightened at the time. It's sort of, you don't quite, I did know what was going on, but I didn't feel that worried. And when I was at school, I had a protector. So I had a lovely sixth former called Margaret who used to look after me. And so not really.
But as a result of all of that, you had to go to boarding school
Yeah.
in England.
Yeah.
So how was that? After the years of living in beautiful islands, you were back in England in the winter, in the 3-day week. Was
In
that
Leamington
tough?
Spa, oh my God, the 3-day week. Yeah, we had no heating. We all had to go to bed at 6 o'clock. Because there was that whole, what was it? It was the trade unions.
It was the miners' strike.
The miners' strike. Yeah, that was fun. So, but when I got to school, my first day there, I walked in and the dorm looked at me and they went, "But you're not black." So I said, "No," and they said, "But you're Tayma from Trinidad. Why?" I said, "Sorry." So that was the end of that. They weren't bothered anymore. I sort of had to fit in.
So So you had a few years in England, but I think you were bursting to get away again. So later on, you decided to join your parents again in Nigeria. West Africa is a very different kind of a place. Did anything stand out to you as being very different from where you lived before, or were there similarities? That
Yeah, I went to
places?
Lagos when I was about 18, 19, so I just started at university in England at Leicester. And just getting off the plane was like walking into an oven. The heat was unbelievable. And it was completely different from Trinidad. Because Trinidad, we lived on the golf course, we had the dogs, we just had a free life. In Lagos, you couldn't even walk down the road. I don't know if Rade remembers that. You had to go everywhere with the car, the driver, and that was that. You know, we used to go to the Federal Palace, we used to go to the Akoi Club, and we used to go to friends' houses, but that was it. We didn't have the freedom like we had, and we had Tuareg night guards, and they were the nomadic tribes from the Sahara. And they would wear these indigo dyed robes from the indigo vats in Kano. And you never knew who your night guards were because they kept changing. So when two of them got fed up, they would move and go off somewhere else or go back to the desert or wherever they came from. So one evening, my mother had been out, my father was away, and Mummy had been out and could not wake up. She just couldn't get in the house, and she was at the gates, so she ended up trying to climb over the gates, was narrowly missed by an arrow going straight past her head, which was a poisoned arrow from one of the Tuareg guards who'd obviously just woken up. So, yeah, you never quite knew what was going to happen.
It sounds like a good thing that you had your Tuareg guards, because of course Nigeria also had its political troubles while you were living there.
It did, but actually I got there just after the Biafran War. So they'd already had the Biafran War, which was the Igbo tribes wanting to create their own country within Nigeria. And there were a lot of mercenaries because nobody would support the cause of Biafra. So they imported a lot of mercenaries to help fight the cause. And I remember one night I was at this, do you remember the Bacchus and the Bagatelle? So one night at the Bacchus nightclub, this very drunk guy came in and got behind the bar and started swearing and shouting he was a mercenary that had fought for the Igbo, and he started shouting at them, the staff at Bacchus, and literally everybody disappeared. And he was one of the guys, they would have cooking pots filled with nuts, bolts, and any nasty thing they could find, and they'd be put up trees with gunpowder, and it was all that kind of fighting, guerrilla warfare. This guy was wild and crazy. I've never forgotten it.
And so how did you deal with that? I mean, how did the family, was there a routine that you had to go through?
Well, when we were in Kano, we got burgled, even though we had 2 night guards, 2 Tuaregs, and we had a complete metal fence and doors with barbed wire on the top, and we had a gravel drive. So somehow the burglars managed to bypass all that, get in, scrunch down the drive, get the carpets, get the cutlery, get the lamps, get whatever they could find, and sort of trudge back down. So after that, we had to barricade ourselves in every night. Basil probably knows a bit of that in South Africa. But yeah, so we had to literally keep everything upstairs, and every night we would sort of lock and padlock the door.
You know, Lagos sounds pretty challenging, but you did stay there for a while, and you did some teaching there.
I did. So I decided to stay for a year. So after I finished uni and before I went to Warwick, I had a year in Nigeria, and I lived with a Swedish family, and because my parents had moved up north to Kano, and for something to do, in London I took teaching English as a foreign language. So I started to tutor, and I had 3 little boys, and one was called Armand, and that's Radin Resham's nephew. You can't believe it, but he is. And he was 3 or 4 when I looked after him. Then there was Anders from the Swedish family and another little boy called Angelo. And so I used to sort of tutor them to get in the American school. And at the same time, I'd look after businessmen and sort of, teach them correct English instead of Nigerian English. And one day, the driver said to me, you have to go to the American school because Muhammad Ali is there. So he was in West Africa as part of a sort of meet and greet, I think, for President Carter. And so I took the 3 little boys to go and meet him. And there was a big queue, so I thought I'll stand behind him because at some point he's got to turn around. And at some point he did turn around. And I got my little autograph book. So he signed this autograph book for me. And as I walked away, I'd got these 3 little boys, and one was blonde, one was brown, and one was sort of middling. And one of the Secret Service guys looked at me and he said, "Well, hell, man, you sure as hell been busy." Because I got one up here and holding the other 2. We all just, so I've never forgotten that. You've been busy.
Well, if Muhammad Ali was not enough, you also met someone else pretty fascinating in Lagos, who was a famous war hero.
Oh yeah, so my parents used to play bridge with this very charming old brigadier called Brigadier Gerald Montanaro. And it turned out that he was born in Malta. And he was a very decorated war hero, a DSO, and anyway, been in a lot of combat. Anyway, he was playing bridge and he found out that I'd been born in Malta. So he said, "Oh, how marvellous, dear. Do you think you can keep a secret?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, probably not." So he said, "I really think you need to do the Foreign Office exams." So the Brigadier arranged for me to have the Foreign Office exams sent out in a diplomatic bag to the Lagos British High Commission. And I'd sort of forgotten about it because I wasn't really interested. And I was out till about 3 o'clock in the morning the night before. And then Mummy woke me up and had to go to the High Commission and sit this exam, which is a bit like the 11 plus on crack, because you don't know, you can't Google it up, you don't know what the questions. And this is what Alex and I both have in common, is that we both failed our Foreign Office exams.
I bet you there are more people in this room who have failed the Foreign Office exam. That's it. Everybody I know.
Yeah. So, I mean,
who works there?
Who do they take if they don't take us?
Exactly.
They take prime ministers.
Well,
but your old gentleman was I forget now. What's the movie that
I
they
think
made?
he was one of the Cockleshell heroes,
The
but I'm not
Cockleshell
sure.
heroes, that's
but
right.
I do remember he said to me that he had the last big game license to shoot the big 4, so the lion, the tiger, the elephant, and whichever, from the king of Buganda before it became Uganda, which was quite fascinating at the time. He must have been a spook, basically. That's what he was there for.
So time moved on, and you decided that you should tackle another continent, Asia. So you arrived in Hong Kong, I think in the mid-80s.
Yep, 85.
And how did you find that?
I could not believe how wonderful Hong Kong was. I thought, compared with, trying to live in Lagos, Trinidad, it was foreign enough to be exciting, and it was familiar enough to feel comfortable. And everything was in English. I already knew people here. I had a job. I had a company flat. Everything was really wonderful. And I thought I didn't need a work permit or a visa. And I'd only been here 2 weeks, and they sent me up to Beijing. And I literally had to go around the Beijing hotel with a clipboard and knock on doors and ask, well, there were only men, there weren't any women there, and asked them which company, what were they doing, because I was trying to make the first ever directory of foreign businesses in Beijing in 1985. So that was a bit of a trailblazing thing. And then you would sit in the lobby at the Beijing hotel on a Friday, and then a van would turn up, and everybody would leap in the van, all the journalists and the Foreign Office people, and you'd go to one of the embassies for a party. So it was a TGIF every Friday. And the one that I went to was the American Embassy, which of course was the best, because they had everything. Coke, Dr. Peppers, if you like that. I mean, they just had everything. And there was nothing in Beijing at the time. So we loved it.
Be careful what you say there.
Coca-Cola.
Misinterpreted.
Coca-Cola.
Well, you said that.
Yeah, no, all the other stuff was in Lagos. Yeah, a lot of that in Lagos.
So I think you have a strong streak of the intrepid. Going up to China in those days is probably quite tough. Do you think some of that comes from what you'd seen growing up?
I don't know, it was sort of Monday morning and Beijing tomorrow. So you sort of said yes. So I don't think I even thought about it. But one of my stories, my circular stories and sort of Commonwealth circularity, is that when I always had my nails done in the Mandarin, and I was there paying, and one day, and I saw this sign, and it said that this special Reiki master was coming to Hong Kong. And he did numerology, Reiki, and all the rest of it. And I looked at the name and I thought, that name looks familiar. So I booked a session, and a week later I walked into one of the Mandarin suites. And I looked at this man, and he said, "So, why have you come here today?" And I said, "Excuse me, I'm a Trini girl from St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain, and you are Rex LaSalle. And because of you, I had to go to boarding school in England." And it was a sliding doors moment. He couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And there was this guy that had mutinied in Trinidad. I'd seen him, going past for a courts martial. He then completely reinvented himself and was an international sort of shaman and Reiki guy. And we exchanged numbers, and he called me quite a lot. He messaged me. And he was very charismatic, and I just thought how funny that this person who had mutinied against the government should now be doing my numerology. I'm number 9, apparently. In the Mandarin beauty salon. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, well, doesn't that just show the omnipotence of the Commonwealth?
Yes. And my other
Can't
Commonwealth
get away
story
from it.
is, so General Yakubu Gawan, who was a member of the Tiv tribe, and he was fighting on behalf of the Igbo in the Biafran War. So he and another guy, Emeko Okonuru or something, they were the leaders of the Biafran War. And then General Gawan went on to be the president of Nigeria. And there was a bloodless coup because he had a tip-off and he was already in Ghana. And he escaped, and then there was another regime in place. And years later, when I was at Warwick University, going across the campus, there's General Gawan. And he was studying political science and doing a PhD at Warwick the same time I was there. And then I met him, some very old friends of mine, the Brandlers that I grew up with in Lagos. So there's the Nigeria Society in London, and they used to have the drinks party once a year at the House of Lords. And I went, and there was General Gawan standing there. So I had this long chat with him, and he also had great power in my life because, we had no water, we had no electricity, there were even and odd numbers for the cars, all because of the political turmoil. And then I got to meet him, and he was a postgrad student, same as me, at the same university.
It just shows that whatever you've done in your life, you can reinvent yourself.
Actually, you can, yeah.
Start to all over again.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that some of you would like to ask questions to Tayma, so let me just do one or two more, and then we'll open it up. Of course, you're known here for your jewellery business, and you've been a very successful entrepreneur. But I think it's genuinely your passion. What is it about gemstones, particularly coloured stones, that really gets to you?
It's just the colour and the beauty, and I sort of started actually with the Tuareg beads in Nigeria. You know, those beautiful beads that we used as money and currency in the desert, and they are cobalt blue and red, absolutely beautiful. And I used to sort of make jewellery when I was at uni and in my teens, and my mother was very passionate about jewellery, so I was always following her into jewellery shops and looking at all sorts of jewellery. And then when I got to Hong Kong, I realised that you can actually design and hand make your own jewellery, which you can't really do. You can now maybe in the UK, but you couldn't really before. So I started to make some jewellery for me, and then all my friends wanted what I'd made, and it sort of grew organically from that in about 1989, 90. So Tayma Fine Jewellery started about 35 years ago, literally with no business plan, with 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, and just grew from there. I mean, a lot of people in the room remember those days. Doing the Hilton Fair.
I know there have been a few bumps in the road and some challenges that you probably don't remember fondly, but you've risen above.
Well, one of them was a taxi driving over my bag of jewellery, and then the look on my face, and I screamed, and then he reversed. So thank God it wasn't someone's dog, but it was a fake LV bag full of jewellery, and I'd done a tea party at somebody's house, and I just put the bag down, and the taxi just, so yeah, that was a big cry moment. Very damaged.
All right, my last question, I have to come back to the Commonwealth. What does it mean to you? Do you think living in all of these different places and having this shared legacy is really part of your identity?
I think it's completely part of my identity. It really is. Even now, if I meet someone from Trinidad or Malta or Nigeria, it really means something to me, because when when you don't have a fixed home, then the people of those countries can become like brothers and sisters and become a home. And it's sort of wherever I lay my hat, there's my home kind of thing. And the circularity and the synchronicity of Commonwealth countries, and there's 56 countries, and they've just had 4 new members, and they weren't even colonies. Countries want to belong to the Commonwealth that weren't ever colonized. And I think it was started about 1947, 48, and the Queen's father was the first head of the Commonwealth, and the Queen was the second. And in fact, it's not automatic that the royal family will be head of the Commonwealth. It's just that the Commonwealth chooses them. And I think it's a very, very special connection. Somehow it seems different from other trade connections to me, anyway.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question that they'd like to pose to Tayma?
You can ask me anything, Yes. Yeah. I started off really with pearls, and I designed these necklaces that you could wear with a necklace and a bracelet. So you could have them super long, opera length. You could have them round twice or 3 times as a choker with the bracelet. And I had a lovely old gentleman that used to go to China for me and would bring back. I used to give him all the clasps, and he would have them strung and bring them back for me. And I would go to parties and have one round my neck and sell it and put another one on. And then the gemstones, really, I have to say, was when I finally got a shop in Lan Kwai Fong upstairs. So these traders used to keep knocking on the door, and Rowena, who's been with me 35 years, never let them in. Anyway, I was there one day, so she let in Mohammed and Yasser, so named after Yasser Arafat. Anyway, they said, we've been trying to get in here because we have beautiful gems from Sri Lanka, and our grandfather has told us that you're going to save our business because nobody in Hong Kong is buying our stones. So I said, well, show me, because I'm bound to love them. Anyway, they then showed me unbelievable sort of sugar pink sapphire cabochons, yellow sapphires, blue, green, purple sapphires, aquamarines, watermelon tourmalines, all these things, moonstones, exquisite. And I said to Mohammed, look, I can't buy these. I don't have any money. And he said, no problem, you can just have them long as you like, sale or return. And that really was the start for me to be able to have these beautiful gems and design pieces and call up friends and say, I've got the most divine sapphires and moonstones, would you like a necklace, sort of thing. And it started really from there, and a lot of those stones were from the grandfather and the great-grandfather's collection, because they're a 200-something-year-old family business. So a lot of the stones are from mines that are closed. And also when I started to meet the Brazilians, that also happened, because a lot of them had got gems that were my first Paraíba I bought from my Brazilian dealers in about 2004. And at the same time I bought these beautiful bicolour tourmalines, and they said that the great-grandfather had mined them. And when you're a gem lover, it's a bit like antiques or something. You don't want to sell them because you love them yourself. So you have to really like the person that you sell them to, because then you feel happier about saying goodbye to them. So yeah, it's more than just money or bling. The gems are, diamonds are what, 4 billion years old? Zircons, I think tourmalines are 1.4 billion years, and these are treasures from our planet, and they're created under intense heat and pressure, and they all have their sort of DNA of life inside them. And just when I think I've seen everything, I then see another one and can't resist it. So I'm trying really hard to resist, but again, it's really hard.
But, sorry, Tayma, having said that, difficult technical pieces, but do you have any pieces that are just yours, centerpieces that are your identity, that sit in the shop? This is me, this isn't going to go anywhere.
Sort of what I'm wearing. So this is the firework pendant, and it came together very quickly, and it's a mix of Brazilian and Mozambique Paraíba tourmalines with rubellite tourmalines from Brazil and little diamonds. Yeah. And when I found this great big tourmaline Paraíba here, again from my Brazilian friends, I knew that wasn't going anywhere either. So yes, I do. I have my favourites.
Tayma, I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
In all that time, you've really defined yourself by being a jeweler, designing in a sort of alternative universe. Have that not taken? And I know you did study to be a teacher. What might you have been?
That's a great question. I've been a teacher. I've been in PR marketing. I've been in exhibitions and conferences. I write I do all sorts of things, but you know, I always used to think, if I came back again, I want to be a big wave surfer.
Try it.
You know, I love watching those break point. I love them. And I don't know how they stand on there, but and when we were in Lagos, we used to go up Badagry Creek. Remember? So you'd go up Badagry Creek, and then you'd walk through all the palm trees and everything, and then you'd hit that. Which sea was it? That massive waves on this ocean on the other side, and you'd have to work out. Oh my God, Bar Beach on a Sunday, sort of sitting amongst all the bullets. Yeah, they did public executions on a Saturday.
Oh, that's. Well, at least the beach got washed.
And it was called the Bar Beach Show. Do you remember that? Yeah, the Bar Beach Show, and they would be selling drinks and alcohol and shooting prisoners on a Saturday, and we'd all turn up on a Sunday with mini mopes and and all the traders coming from Gabon and Dahomey and sort of voulez-vous acheter des cadeaux, mademoiselles, trying to all the traders. But no, it wasn't Bar Beach because that was fairly flat. Oh, Tarqua, that's why I got my worst ever sunburn that is coming back to haunt me now. I couldn't walk my entire legs because I didn't realise, because Lagos is 10 degrees off the equator, so it's totally different from a Caribbean sun and totally different from a Mediterranean sun. So I just fried. We went to Tarqua and there was no shade. So it was just, anyway, this other side going up Badagry Bay, so these huge waves, and you had to decide whether you were an over or an under because of how the wave was. So I got to know the waves quite well, and some of them you could go up and you'd be like 10 feet in the air being taken up by the waves, and others you had to go right down, and then this huge wave would be crashing over you for it seemed like minutes before you could stick your head up. So yeah, maybe I'd come back as a surfer. Jana, yeah. Hi. We did.
Beautiful charitable work. I wonder, say for what brought you into help children with diabetes, Cancer Foundation, your big heart.
Thank you.
I met you at the event, so
Yes.
what happened before, how led you to it,
Yes, thank you. Well, I think Sarah's mother and my mother did a lot of charity work, and so I grew up with the giving back. So yes, so our mothers did swimming for the blind and all sorts of things in Trinidad, and in Lagos, Mummy tried to do similar things. But she realised that the money was not going anywhere. So we had quite a big staff when we were in Kano. We had about 12. So all the money would go to looking after the staff and their education and this sort of thing. So for me, I think, when I had my 50th birthday, I asked everyone to just give me a little donation instead of gifts, and then donated a kiln to St James Settlement, and over the years quite a bit of money also with the commandery we donated. And then for the cancer ones, I had breast cancer in 2011. My mother also had breast cancer, so I've been fundraising for them for the last, I think we had our 15th fundraiser last year, which is really nice. And then of course everybody asks me all the time, so lots of galas. There's another one on Saturday, I'm donating again. And I do, the Hong Kong Club Foundation things. So I think it's, I don't know, I'm just the sort of person that can't go past somebody on the street without giving them something. But when I was in the Prince's building, you might have seen him, there's a chap that sits in a powered chair, and he would literally wait for me every single day coming out of the Prince's building. And sometimes I literally used to come down the escalator, see him there, and have to go back up and go out of another door because 6 days a week was a bit much. So sometimes, and even now, he spots me in the street and comes after me.
He's got a scooter now.
Yeah, he does. He's quite fast. He's the chap you can see at the taxi rank. He's at the taxi rank often outside the landmark.
He's still there.
Yes. So he sees me and rushes to me every time. And, oh, hello. So yeah. So yes, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah.
Truly a good thing. I think this is probably the last question, Richard.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Tayma, different type of question. What was your dad or mum up to that took you to Malta and to Trinidad and to West Africa?
So my father worked for a company called NCR, which back in the day was National Cash Register. And if you watch a spaghetti western and you see those big brass cash registers with all, so that's what they did in the 18 whatevers. So by the 1950s, they were moving into the first computers. There was IBM and NCR were the two big companies. And my parents sort of met. My mother was engaged actually to someone else and meant to be going to Kenya. But she came down the stairs, Daddy went up the stairs, and it was a sort of coup de foudre, and that was that. And they ended up going to Malta. And so they moved on, but mostly and in fact, my father took over Sarah's father's job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in Trinidad. Yes. But Sarah actually was born in Trinidad, so she's more of a Trini than me.
My parents were there. And the Black Power revolution in 1970, they brought this land was absolutely too. Everybody else is leaving.
So Trinidad is quite your home, really.
Very much when we look back. It's
Yeah.
oh God.
Yeah. So we're going to Guru.
Yeah,
We're going to Guru. So actually, now Sarah and I are in a little Trini group in Hong Kong, which is, they don't do much, but it's just really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how many, what is the Trinidadian population of Hong Kong?
Like 10.
Maybe there's about 30.
Right.
Maybe there's about 30. 30, maybe.
And are they
Something like
members of
that.
the Commonwealth Society as well?
I'm trying, but they're not so interested.
Oh, we'll get there.
I'm trying.
We'll get there. Tayma is one of our most loyal supporters, and we appreciate it very
Well,
much.
Alex, when she took over being chairman, she messaged me and she said, "You really have to join because you're the most Commonwealth person we have." So I now have that accolade. I'm the most Commonwealth person.
Oh, as I said, she's the embodiment of Commonwealth soft power. So-
in Commonwealth.
So actually, I've got 2 Tayma goodie bags for 2 people in the room. So I'm not quite sure. I was trying to think of if anybody can answer a question. Oh yes, okay. First question. Can anybody remember the name of my school in Trinidad? Not Sarah. Who said that? Who said it first? Who said it?
Come on.
Who was it? Rade? Rade. Okay, one gift you can fight over it. My other question, what would it be? What year was the Royal Commonwealth Society founded?
Sorry.
You said 48.
She's right, it's 49.
Right.
They started to think about it in 47, and then they slightly changed the rules because they said that republics. That's the Commonwealth. Isn't that Commonwealth? Oh, the society. Oh, I don't know. Yes. You know, I was 22. And you remember?
Yeah, it seems like
It's like
it
11
seems
months.
like here's a parallelogram. Move it 270 degrees, and what would it look
Yeah,
like?
they're pretty,
It's like an IQ test.
yeah,
The one I remember, so I was in a tiny room with no windows, a clock, a man opposite me, a young official, and he was busy drawing a picture of the room and on a graph, you know, where I was, where he was, and there was a big sign outside the door, "Do not enter." And I was sort of sitting there chewing my pencil with a hangover. And at some point, the door opened, and this large Nigerian came in with a vacuum cleaner. He went, "Hey, mind your leg, mind your leg. Move over, move over." So that, of course, really spoilt my concentration, because I wasn't really concentrating anyway. And took out about 10 minutes of the test, and was completely illegal, because it was all meant to be, you know, in the same time and everything as the British were taking it. But my question, I remember, was about the traffic in Naples and how was I going to sort it out.
oh right.
Money penny did it.
I can't remember. This was 62.
Yes. Pass that test, either lied or they didn't get that question. So it's still not sorted.
Still not sorted. They're probably still answering.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, second question.
Remember RCS family, 1868.
The what? The what? The
1868?
what?
RCS?
Yeah, I think it's
yeah.
1868.
Well, that was a colonial.
that's what.
Yeah, that was
No, you asked your question. That's
Okay,
my
so
question. Go
another
on.
boring question. How old was my school in Trinidad?
190.
Yes, there we are. That's some gifts. Well done.
Well, I think we could keep asking questions, and you will over drinks and nibbles with Tayma. But I'd like to thank her so much for giving her time to answer you and our stories.